What I have here is a Kenwood KR-5150, and I picked this up about 2 months ago, and I have been using it really as my daily driver for the last couple of months, and I'm really impressed with it. And I just wanted to make a video about it and share why I like it so much. So here we go. Well, let's talk about some of the specs on this Kenwood KR-5150. This is actually vintage 1970, so this is relatively early. And I have seen on the inside of this case, and you can tell it looks a little different than some of the other equipment I've worked on. You know, you can tell the transistors are a little different, the pots are different. You know, the components weren't miniaturized quite as much as some of the equipment you might find built in the mid-70s to late 70s. But this has 33 watts per channel at 8 ohms, which to me is always enough power. The frequency response goes from 20 hertz up to 40 kilohertz. At 40 kilohertz is really high. I think what's interesting is I used a frequency generator to figure out which frequencies I can hear at my advanced state of age. I can't hear anything below 100 hertz, and I can't hear anything above 8 kilohertz, right? So yeah, whatever that's worth. Total harmonic distortion is 0.5%. It can handle speaker load impedance between 4 ohms and 16 ohms. Total weight on this little bugger is 21 pounds. It's not too bad. That's reasonably luggable. First thing that stands out to me is a very nice wood cabinet. I like wood. What can I say? And this one has a nice wood cabinet. I don't know if all the 5150s came with a wood cabinet, but this one has it, and I like it. Next thing that impresses me is the relatively small footprint of this thing. You know, it's not a big beast. It fits easily within the space that I have for it. It's not, you know, overly obtrusive. It's not to say there's anything wrong with bigger equipment, but sometimes you don't need it, right? You don't necessarily need big equipment. It's heavy, it can be clumsy. I kind of like the compact size of this thing. Let's turn it on. I have it set to FM at the moment. Hopefully you can see I've got the indicator light. It does, we are tuned into a station here. I do not have an antenna on it, but you know, I've got a good signal, which is fine. There is a fine tune meter as well. This has been converted to LED lights with the exception of the fine tuning meter. My understanding is you don't really want to put LEDs in the fine tune meter because that could, you know, mess up the function of it. And so let's go through the next thing I really like about it. And to do that, I'm going to step through the inputs. So that's FM. If I go left, that's AM. Phono 1, phono input. Yep, everybody's got that. Next one, phono 2. That's right, 2 phono hookups. How exciting is that? That is really cool because I like to have 2 turntables hooked up at times. Next thing over, we got aux 1 and aux 2. So we've got 2 auxiliary inputs. I guess you could say we don't necessarily have a specific tape input, but there are tape connections. Now, let's go back to phono. Next thing that's really exciting about this receiver is there's not just a speaker A and a speaker B, but there's a speaker C. That's right, 3 sets of speakers can be hooked up to this thing at the same time. How cool is that? Let's cover a few of the controls. This is the speaker selector over here. We can go to all off. You can go to the A speaker, the B speaker, the C speaker, so you can do nice comparisons. Then you can go to A and B and A and C. I really like that. Really like that because I love comparing speakers, and this gives me a lot of flexibility in doing that. So then you have your bass, treble, and well, that's mode, which we'll talk about in a minute. But there's really no mid-range tweak. I tend to always leave my receiver set at middle ground. You know, I'm not adding or deleting anything. Coming across here, we do have a loudness button. There is a tape monitor button. There is an FM mute. There's a low filter and a high filter, none of which I ever bother using, although I do, you know, understand why you may want some of that. The balance is right here on the bottom. Underneath is a slider. Again, I just always leave it neutral. Here's your volume, and here's your station tuning. Over on the right-hand side, we actually have microphone inputs, a left and a right channel. There is a phono connection over on the left. So she's pretty complete. Well, let's talk about this mode switch. Honestly, I had to research this. I never use it. I always have it set to stereo, the default position. Okay, so apparently you can go all the way to the left. It says left input program reproduction is provided through both speakers. So if you only have one channel coming in, you can send that to both speakers. I assume right does exactly the same thing, but with the right channel. Stereo, which is the default, is that it handles any stereo inputs. And it will handle mono inputs as well. Now, Rev, the next one down, this is interesting. It reverses the positions of the two speakers. So the left signal goes to the right signal goes to the left speaker. So basically, if you got your speakers reversed, I guess you can just fix it by switching the switch. Maybe there's some other reason you want to do that. I don't know. And then mix is the final selection, and that says mixes left and right channel together. Curious. I guess a lot of that stuff might be useful when you're dealing with microphones. I don't know. Well, we've talked about facts and figures and dimensions and so forth, but let's get down to just some seat of the pants opinions here. And let's face it, everybody's going to have their own opinion of these things. Why is this still my daily driver? And it's because I love the way it sounds, quite frankly. It's just that simple. You know, I have access to some, I'll call it less sophisticated, you know, I don't know. Maybe sophisticated is the wrong word. I have access to 4 or 5 different receivers. And I have noticed as I do different things that they definitely have a different sound to them. I have access to a Marantz 2275. I think it sounds fabulous. It drives 2 sets of speakers really nice. And my other receivers don't seem to do that. When I plugged in this Kenwood, I was surprised how much this sounds like the Marantz. I was also surprised and pleased by how well it drives 2 sets of speakers. So I was like, what's not to like about this thing? You know, I think it's great. So again, that's very subjective, one guy's opinion, you know, but there you have it. So yeah, I really like this thing. And I use it here in my personal listening room, so to speak. And the Marantz is, you know, is more of a showpiece, and it doesn't get quite as much play because of where it's located. But so be it. Well, there you go. My opinion on this Kenwood KR-5150. My guess is these Kenwoods maybe don't get as much love as they should. What do you think?